tentorium cerebellum. There is another one here. This is called diaphragma sella, over the sella turcica. Over the sella turcica, you have the diaphragma sella. In the center of the diaphragma sella, there is a hole which accommodates the infundibulum, or the stall of the pituitary gland. Okay, now let's continue with the dural sinuses. One of them is this one. This is the superior sagittal sinus. Along the inferior free border of the pulse cerebri, you have the inferior sagittal sinus. Inferior sagittal sinus joins the vein of Callan and forms the straight sinus. This is the straight sinus. This is the straight sinus. Let's look at here. You see this one? This is the superior sagittal sinus. It's posterior end. Here is the anterior end of the
Superior sagittal sinus.
superior sagittal sinus. Look at here. Here you have the confluence of sinuses. Confluence of sinuses. Let's put this back to see where. Look at this one here. When you put this here, can you see that the look at here. The straight sinus also drains in the confluence of sinuses, right here. Confluence of sinuses. So the position of the straight sinus is like this. Okay? So this is the confluence, the straight sinus. Straight sinus. This is the superior sagittal sinus. And remember, generally, superior sagittal sinus continues with right transverse sinus. This is the right transverse sinus. And this one, then, this transverse sinus continues with the sigmoid sinus. This is the sigmoid sinus. Sigmoid sinus drains into the
Internal carotid.
internal jugular vein, right?
Yeah.
Internal jugular vein. Now look at here. This is the cavernous sinus. On both sides of the body of the sphenoid bone, you have the cavernous sinus. Cavernous sinuses are interconnected by the anterior and posterior intercavernous sinuses. This one here is the saphenoparietal sinus. Saphenoparietal sinus, which drains into cavernous sinus. What other veins also drain into cavernous sinus? Can you tell me?
We had this inferior ophthalmic.
Very good.
vein.
Inferior ophthalmic and superior ophthalmic veins also drain into the cavernous sinus. In the center of the cavernous sinus, you have the internal carotid artery and abducens nerve next to it. On the lateral wall of the cavernous sinus, from anterior to the posterior, you have, you tell me, oculomotor nerve, then trochlear nerve, then
the
ophthalmic nerve,
then the maxillary.
then the maxillary nerve. And you know that mandibular nerve does not pass through the lateral wall of the cavernous sinus. Good. Look at here. Now, there are two sinuses that drain the cavernous sinuses. This is the superior petrosal sinus. Superior petrosal sinus connects or drains cavernous sinus into the transverse sinus. Good. Look at down here, you have the inferior petrosal sinus. Inferior petrosal sinus drains or connects cavernous sinus to the internal jugular vein directly, internal jugular vein. So far, we have covered superior sagittal, inferior sagittal sinuses, then the straight sinus, here, this one, this is straight sinus, confluence of sinuses, transverse sinus, sigmoid sinus, and cavernous sinuses, superior petrosal, inferior petrosal sinuses. We have two more sinuses here. The one here, right here, located anteriorly here, is the basilar sinus, basilar sinus. And posteriorly here you have the occipital sinus. This is the occipital sinus. Occipital sinus, superior sagittal sinus, and straight sinus, both of them drain into confluence of sinuses. And from both sides of the confluence of sinuses, transverse sinuses actually begin and run laterally. Now, there's another thing you should remember here. You have a plexus inside the venous plexus, inside the epidural space around the spinal cord. Can you remember its name?
It was
That is the internal vertebral venous plexus, right?
Yes.
Internal vertebral venous plexus.
Yes.
Inside the epidural space around the spinal cord. The lower end of the internal vertebral venous plexus anastomoses with the prostatic venous plexus.
Yes.
Its upper end anteriorly anastomoses with the basilar sinus, posteriorly with the occipital sinus. Through these connections, this anastomosis, prostatic cancers of prostate gland, can easily spread to the brain. Okay? So again, here you anteriorly you have the basilar sinus, posteriorly you have the occipital sinus.
So can you point at the basilar sinus just one more time?
Basilar sinus is here. It's not shown.
Oh, okay. So again.
It's not shown here, but the site of the basilar sinus is here, right here.
Okay.
And basilar sinus does another thing. Can you remember that? Basilar sinus connects the inferior petrosal sinuses. So the inferior petrosal sinuses are interconnected through the basilar sinus. Basilar sinus is right here, right here. Okay, this is what I have to talk about the dural sinus.